Hi, I'm sci-fi and fantasy author Michael LaVoice, aka LaVoice, in your head. And I'm fit to talk nerdy with you. I just had an opportunity to rewatch a movie from the 80s. Well, I say rewatch, it's watch for the first time. I was a massive space shuttle nerd back in the 80s. I loved everything about the shuttle program. I loved everything about NASA. I loved everything about the fact that we even had a space program and the fact that we had a space truck that was capable of going up into space, dropping off parts and supplies at a space station, and then coming back down. That was so freaking bombastic to me as an 80s kid. And then Challenger happened. I watched a space shuttle explode on live TV. And we were Gen X kids, so our teachers basically told us to go back to class. There were no counselors, there were no prayer meetings, there were none of that. Just okay, that's over. Go back to class, and then spend the next several days watching the evening news to find out what happened to the 7 astronauts, and try to get my face pounded in every time somebody made a stupid NASA joke about needing another 7 astronauts. I took it very personally. And this is why I think I completely missed out on the movie Space Camp. So, that being said, I had the opportunity to watch Space Camp recently for an upcoming podcast that I'm on. And I just wanted to share some thoughts about it. Because, first of all, it didn't help that this film was made for kids and I was an adult watching it for the first time. A lot of people would have seen this and felt very nostalgic for it. I didn't have that. I had nostalgia for the shuttle program, and that helped. It also had a soundtrack by John Williams. That helped because you can't go wrong with a soundtrack from John Williams. But for me, the performances were somewhat lacking. The writing was very simplistic because as an adult, I'm used to character-driven plots. Well, this is a kids movie, so it's a action-driven plot. It's an event-driven plot. The characters are cardboard cutouts. You've got the pilot girl, the nerdy girl who wants to be the it girl, the young black science geek who all of his boys in the hood are telling him, yo, why you gotta be interested in science, man? And then you've got the little kid genius, a boy genius on the crew. And then the ringleader is supposed to be this, he's supposed to be the leader, but he spends more time flirting with the main female lead, who's the pilot, than he does anything else. In fact, that's the whole reason he's there, is to flirt with the girl, not be a leader. So, kind of cardboard cutout characters. The dialogue was kind of cardboard cutout dialogue. It was very wooden in places, and very much we need to move the plot along. We need to move the plot along. Not a lot of time spent on character development. So already I'm having problems with this movie. And then the plot devices themselves used to get these people up into space. I mean, the movie was done in the 80s. If you haven't seen it by now, and I hadn't, yeah, spoiler alert. But the robot Jinx was annoying to me, number one. Number two, they had this robot doing stuff that can only be counted as magic in what was supposed to be a science-based show. And the plot devices used to get these kids into space are where I really started to have trouble with this movie. I don't even want to get started on Kate Capshaw's lackluster performance as a shuttle pilot who hasn't had the chance to go up in one yet with her on again, off again Southern accent. If they had taken the kid that played her in the opening sequence and allowed her to grow up and used her in the movie, it probably would have been better. Now, here's where we get into the weeds of being a shuttle nerd watching a movie that was made for people who know nothing about the shuttle program. Problem number one, these kids are accidentally launched into orbit during an engine test. Let's just take the fact that Space Camp kids would not be allowed on a real shuttle and set that over there. We'll just put that over there. I get it. It's for the plot. So we leave that part over there and look at the fact that even if they had somehow, because let me tell you, a thermal curtain failure is not a real thing. It doesn't exist. It was made up for the movie. But if they had accidentally launched, they could have been safely landed back at Kennedy right after they dropped the solid rocket boosters. There was contingency plans for that already in the works. Then, failing that, if they actually did achieve orbit, they could have turned around and landed at an alternate spot, one of four, with a 90-minute window. Okay? There were four places they could have landed that shuttle within 90 minutes. That window opening up in orbit within 90 minutes, or failing that, making one more orbit and getting one within an hour or two. There was this 12-hour in between or window. No. Reentry window, 12 hours, didn't exist. Then they say that they can't talk to the shuttle because the space radio, the long range radio wasn't installed, just the short range radio for the engine test. If I'd been in the theater at that point, I would have walked. I probably would have stood up and said, "This is bullcrap," and walked out, because the shuttle communication system is one package. It all came together. There's no such thing as swapping radios out for launch day. Never happened. So I'm having lots of problems with this movie. Now, okay, the writing did have some good points. There were some character arcs. Your science kid from the hood eventually decides that he's going to really buckle down and study because he loves science. He's not great at it, but he loves it. And so he studies hard. And he is pivotal in a scene where he knows what he's talking about, and the cocky pilot girl doesn't. And so he proves his worth there, that he knew his stuff and he studied the book inside and out, and he overcame that barrier to being good at science. The pilot girl overcame her desire to be shuttle commander and just be able to fly the thing, because she realized that she couldn't, in the crunch, make the big, hard decision to abort a burn to get back and save a crew member, or just sacrifice that crew member to get everybody else back alive. That was a hard call. The cocky kid who was always flirting with her, that wasn't much of a leader, stepped up and made that call, and then directed everybody else. So their character arcs converged and they grew and changed, and that was cool. The young kid, the boy genius, played by, at the time, a kid known as Leaf Phoenix. And yeah, I thought he looked familiar. Didn't look anything up on the movie before I watched it. And then come to find out, oh crap, that's Joaquin Phoenix as a child. No wonder he looks so familiar. He did a really good job. He gave me a lot of like Lewis from The Last Starfighter vibes. And so I enjoyed his performance a great deal. But then the technical goofs came back in and just completely overshadowed the rest of the film. So, like, at the end, they land on a runway at allegedly White Sands, but they land on a paved runway. All the runways at White Sands are dry lake beds. It wouldn't have been asphalt covered at all. Aside from all the 12-hour window BS, they could have landed the shuttle in 90 minutes. Yes, we don't get a movie then, but that's what would have really happened. I think maybe the most annoying goof for me in this film was they have this scene where they go to a space station to get extra oxygen tanks, and Kate Capshaw's character can't fit her helmeted head through the monkey bars that the stupid oxygen tanks are sitting on the other side of. She can't get the tanks. Everybody's going to die. So what do the kids from the space camp do? They take the boy genius and put him in a spacesuit because he can fit through the bars. Guys, you put him in a spacesuit made for an adult. It's got the same size helmet. It's not going to fit. It ain't going to happen. But they made it fit. And we're supposed to believe because he's smaller, he could get his head through there, even though it's the same size helmet that she was wearing. You see where I'm going with it? Somebody wasn't thinking. They had manual interaction with the shuttle during a launch sequence, which never happened. Everything was controlled from the mission control center. So that was annoying. Um, they did get the terminology right for panel C3, but that panel was in the middle, not on the other side next to the commander. So that was wrong when he drops the solid rocket boosters, the SRBs. Another goof was when they achieved orbit, they didn't immediately open the cargo doors. And they left the cargo doors closed almost the entire movie, except when they needed to do two very fast, unrealistically fast spacewalks. The reason you open the cargo doors is because you have thermal units on there that get rid of excess heat from inside the shuttle. If you don't open those cargo doors, everybody in the shuttle is going to suffocate from overheating. And when they did open the cargo doors, the thermal units weren't there. They weren't equipped on the shuttle Atlantis. So they still would have died way before they missed their window of opportunity to break back through the atmosphere. So that was bad. But again, in the writer's defense, let me just say that a lot of sci-fi writers pay zero attention to the fact that in space, you don't die from cold. You'll overheat because you've got no way to get rid of it. That works very well. Heat exchange is a big deal in space. And most of us just ignore it because it's inconvenient and it's not very sexy. So, another thing they got wrong is the shuttle commander is actually the one that flies the shuttle. He's actually the pilot, and the pilot is more of a co-pilot, backup pilot. But that didn't work for the writing, and it didn't work for their character archetype. So I get why they had to change that one around, but it's still not accurate. Another error is that shuttle launches from Kennedy. Yeah, but the minute it launches from Kennedy, all communications and controls then immediately shift to Johnson Space Center in Texas. So not only would they not have had control of the shuttle from Kennedy, they would have had no way to talk to them because all the comms would go through Johnson Space Center in Texas as well. So they wouldn't have been able to talk to them, just not for the reasons they said. So there are issues with that. There was the issues with the way they portrayed weightlessness. You got to see some of the wires every once in a while, and everybody's floating around, but their hair isn't, and that was weird. So yeah, lots of things to complain about. It doesn't really hold up. There's talks that Disney may have commissioned someone to write an updated version of Space Camp. We now live in an age where we no longer have the shuttle. We no longer care about space as much, and we have privatized quite a bit of it to a certain former South African billionaire. So I'm not sure how that's going to fly. There are still space camps out there. I know of one, at least in Utah, but is that really a thing that we're really interested in? I don't know. We'll see. If they come up with a decent script, maybe it'll be worth watching. But what did you think? Did you ever see Space Camp when you were a kid? Did you see it when you were an adult? Did you watch them at both times in your life, and how did they compare and contrast? Let me know in the comments, and tune back in next time when I get to be LaVoice in your head.